So I don't know. So if I'm really pretty much this is like a private class, which I love the idea.
Yes, there you go. You got us into a private class. What is it you want to know, or what is it you want to tell us?
It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting, like I wasn't prepared, but let me see all the list of questions that I had. No.
Guy with a list.
What moved me to join you guys is the part of the introduction to the OTT. And I'll give you a little bit of a background what I do. I know Roy from selling Miranda to the Weather Network in Canada, but myself, I've been in broadcast for more than 23 years already. I started in Mexico, a company reselling equipment for post-production and film, like the script logic and stuff to match and all that stuff. For a few years, and I moved to Canada. I started working for VisRT, doing virtual sets, and then I started working with the Weather Network for 10 years. And lately, I'm working on the OTT part, like doing IPTV graphic. We have a very interesting solution that we built at home, in-house, and I'm actually taking care of our IPTV development and the OTT. So it was very interesting and understanding better how is this OTT from the technical point.
Cool. Well, you would have found anything I talked about pretty baby step stuff then. It really was intended for people who didn't have a clue, the old broadcaster types who, think SDI and transmitters in buildings underneath towers.
Okay.
So what's your question? You had a list.
No, I was kidding about the list.
I know.
I don't know. Two things that I can ask you guys is how do you, where do you see the television? I was on a roundtable yesterday that I found it interesting that the approach, it was the future of broadcast, and the approach was everything to do with the media companies and how their workflows are going to change, and because of the writers and the reporters and stuff. But I'm like, I really feel that how broadcasting is going to work, and OTT is going to be one of the platforms. It's going to turn that literally anybody with a phone and a computer can do stories, and they can do broadcast a channel. So the approach of like how the media companies are going to do it, I think they're going to have a really hard time to monetize, because they're elephants. For them to react to change, it's just going to be all this red tape.
I think that's true, but if you look at media companies, they were slow to react to OTT. After all, Netflix launched in 2007, right? And here we are 14 years later, and now they're really launching OTT platforms in earnest, finally, as an end-to-end model, from content creation, film studios to delivery, the models that actually, follows what Prime Video and Netflix built as models. And yet, when you look at the quality and resources they have for creating content in those studios, and their understanding of how to deliver content to consumers, and their DNA that goes back, a century for some of them, it makes them very compelling. It's not like anybody thinks Disney Plus and HBO Max are going to die tomorrow. In fact, if anybody's taking the hit, it's Netflix, who's now going to have to pay more for content and have to make their own, because the people they used to buy content from aren't going to sell it to them anymore because they're keeping it for themselves. So the models keep shifting, and I think, but the truth is, we've always been on this continuum of making it less expensive and easier to produce content, and putting more technology and control into the hands of the creators instead of engineers as time has gone forward. And so we can, which is good, which is a good thing. I mean, I think as engineers we have to acknowledge that making it easier for creators to be creative is not a bad thing.
No. I always say, I don't want to operate when I build something. I don't want to operate the user. Let the graphic artist do the graphic artist. I don't want to. I fix it if it breaks.
I'm a
No.
horrible operator. I agree with you completely. I'm
Exactly.
the person who can never run the teleprompter because I can never read at the same speed as someone else. I was always getting ahead of them and having the anchor yell at me, "Would you slow down?" You know, but the story's interesting. I'm going to, you know. So you know, so this is where we are, and yes, and what the value that all these platforms will have that make it harder for just, you know, a consumer with a cell phone feeding to YouTube to compete is going to be the breadth of content that they have carefully curated and packaged, and the way they can promote other content to those same viewers and stuff. The same way back when they only had television channels, the value of a channel was you could have a great show introduce a new show. So you always were putting your new show right after your biggest show on the block, you know, in the primetime schedule to introduce viewers to the next new show. So they still have that capability. And the thing that's really going to, I think, be interesting to see as we go forward is how do you curate content? Because how do you and I discover shows we want to watch? How do I discover the next show I want to binge? Because I've spent a lot of time, you know, oh, let's try this show, and you watch a couple episodes, and it's just like it doesn't do anything for me, you know, and I've wasted time watching a show that didn't turn into my next binge series. Um, but the challenge also is a lot of really great shows, and I go back to like HBO's The Wire is a perfect example. Until the fourth or fifth episode, you're not addicted to it. You're not in, you know, you don't even understand the show. And by the time if you make it to the fifth episode, you will not stop watching until you get through all 5 series. You will just binge that series straight through. And that's, you know, so how do you get, you need an authoritative voice out there to curate content and tell a viewer it's worth making that investment because this is great content. And
There's so
that's
much.
right. And that's gonna be the secret sauce, is how people figure how to do that. You know, because there's so much to watch. I don't even know how you could even be a television reviewer anymore with 380 new hours of television produced, or actually 540 hours, I think, a new television, you know, actual OTT, you know, but prime television produced every week now. You can't watch it all.
And
Yeah.
and to find it, because the keynote in the morning, this thing of like, I know it's there, but I don't know which channel and which platform.
Yeah.
And the thing is, somebody you can read a review, but happens to be in the States and Canada doesn't have it, or happens to be in the UK and the US doesn't have it. So, or you know, even the name can be different. So I think the reviews can come from anywhere. The platform will change. It's like syndication, but it's just massive.
Well, it's
You know,
incredible. I mean, just listen to the context of what you said. I mean, 10 years ago, something, or 15 years ago, something in the UK we wouldn't have even known about, right?
No.
And now it's something you can access and get reviews on, and so we got to remember the context of scale here, where we've zoomed our universe down to something a lot smaller than it used to be. It's incredible.
and I just watched a show in Norwegian, I think, or Scandinavian the other week. You know, it was a multi-season series. Binged it. You know, I forgot even which. I think it was actually on HBO Prime. I mean HBO Max. Really interesting. You know, but the fact that we're now actually able to watch great content that's produced overseas in its native language is a unique thing.
You don't know.
Yep.
It happens. My daughter watched some show that I think is Argentinian, but the dub is actually quite good. I didn't know that until I was like, those guys don't look like an American or a Canadian series. And I was watching another show, and it was in English, and sometimes I can see like a lip sync, and
Yeah.
as the technical is, it's awful, the lip sync, right? Like a little bit off, and turn out it's German. So it's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's so well done sometimes that you don't know what you're watching.
So if you saw Mark Shubin's keynote, he actually showed an example of using artificial intelligence to do automatic
Yep.
visual lip correction, and like it's really cool. So they turns to German dialogue replacement, and
Yes.
the lips had followed. It's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
I think that's
Hey,
cool,
gang.
scary.
We should
Hello,
we
Red.
should formally welcome Bill.
Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Welcome,
Oh,
Bill.
hi,
And Bill.
sorry,
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Just listen in. It's very interesting. I mean, to your comment about the large broadcasters, I mean, I work with Bell Media has probably 80 linear conventional channels, and it spreads the gamut from, our CTV, which is equivalent to ABC or NBC in the US, all the way down to specialties and sports networks. So what I'm seeing, the transition seems to be, if you're a pre-curated content or posted content, I think the large broadcasters are going to have a hard time keeping up in that space, because Netflix is investing so much money, and obviously now you have Disney Plus and whatnot. So I think that space is going to go to the folks that deliver VOD. And I agree with you as far as the delivery process, whereby even it's my wife that complains to me. It's like, okay, where do I find this? Which button do I have to hit on the remote now? Is it Disney Plus? Is it Netflix? Is it whatever, in order to find it? But my question is, as far as live content goes, and that's where the CTVs and the TSNs, our sports properties, are still leading the way, right? Now I know the Zone, for instance, wants to be the streaming version of live television, and I think they're making some inroads there. But do you guys see that becoming probably the reality of the future, whereby streaming services or over-the-top services will start to take over even live sports, or even things like the Oscars or that sort of thing?
I'll offer a comment, and I think absolutely yes. For sports, absolutely, real time is important. The same with news. As to linear broadcast on a 24-hour program schedule, it'll depend on the future of that market, because there's a twofold problem there. It's the aging out of that market, plus the adoption of technology in that market. So that demo will dictate the future of linear scheduled, but absolutely linear live is here, and it's not going anywhere.
And all of these platforms like Prime Video and Netflix that were once just VOD platforms are moving to bring in linear channels into the mix. Prime has, does a lot of live sports events now, but they're on-demand channels. They're not, pop-up channels. They're not full-time 24/7. Netflix has already started dabbling where on some people's set-top boxes, their app now allows you to play something and it'll just play continuously. You just hit the button.
It's like a live channel from YouTube kind of thing. Like
it's like a live channel, but it's not necessarily live. But what's interesting is they're stitching together a channel for you based upon the things they think you like and already and they know you like. So they're actually building you, because the one thing we've all I think we all agree on, nobody really wanted a 500 channel universe. We just want a universe with one channel that's everything we want on it. And so. And in the OTT world, you can create that channel, right? You can actually build a channel that is optimized for a viewer and tell them what's coming up next, and is things you think they'll like, plus that they may not know they'll like. So it'll be interesting to watch how this evolves.
It's true. What you say, that the channel becomes the viewer, doesn't it? It doesn't become, CTV or CBC, it becomes the viewer. And I mean, that's kind of life around here. Our channel, I guess, is this news and that source for this and these, OTTs and so on. And that's actually, that's a good way to describe it. I like that.
And I think the interesting thing is, and I can't speak to the Canadian market because it's different, but in the US market, where we have, all these television stations, many of which are part of television networks, but only a handful are owned by them, and the rest are owned by station groups. But they're all, and there are also lots of independent ones. That the companies, the networks that are making that content, are now launching their own OTT platforms, right? The Peacocks, the Disney Pluses, because they love having that direct relationship with the consumer to deliver content when they want, to get that instant acknowledgement of what they're watching, and to be able to really do that. And so putting it on their broadcast channel is going to become an afterthought and no longer the primary distribution point for them. It'll be where the popular stuff from OTT, they put it on the channel to bring customers to their OTT platform, which will piss off all those stations without a doubt.
But I have something that I found that is the cost of transmitting, like of streaming. It multiplies. For example, in the weather network, when we have like active weather, we put things on our website, and so people actually can see the stream, and the multiplier of cost. So it's like by users, right? So sometimes it becomes prohibitive how many streams you can have, how personalized, because it becomes a one stream instead of like a broadcast. On that part of the IP world of video and VOD and even live, I don't know if it's going to improve or what to do, because I think the some of the prices are crazy.
For the
Well,
CDN cost, you mean? For the stream, yeah.
well,
No,
so
I
first
agree.
off, yeah, I mean, you have to, those CDNs will only improve over time as they fight each other to improve costs,
Mhm.
and develop better technologies to cache at the edge and not have to repeat content, so lower their bandwidth costs, streaming cost networks. And then you'll see things like what Alluvio is doing right now to deliver content without by building a CDN built on blockchain. So, I mean, which is really kind of revolutionary what Michelle Munson's up to. Not that everything she does isn't revolutionary. So the interesting thing is where there are problems, there will be solutions that fix them over time. So, to keep those costs in line. And as someone who actually helped build a CDN 21 years ago, using satellites, I can remember, how this road goes. So I would not, you're right. When you only use content at this level and suddenly you're bursting content and viewers up here, and you haven't built a CDN architecture to build the economy for this, then you're going to get surprised with the bill.
And I also wonder about the monetization model. Like if you take the NFL, for instance, I mean, the negotiated deals that they have with the NBCs and the Foxes of the world. I know they're now selling, I think, Thursday Night Football to Amazon in the US.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
that's the start of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But are they going to get to the level where, maybe there's an NFL network that you go directly to the NFL and you can stream services from them. But is there a possibility or can you monetize it to the same level as what they're currently getting from, the big networks? Even the NBA, I know,
The
I've done a
Olympics.
bit of work with them, and the Olympics is another one.
Yeah.
And you look at the NBA, they've now connected, like they have broadband connectivity into all the venues that they deal with. So they're set up to do things like remote production immediately. So you wonder how long is it going to take for the major, sporting leagues to just say, hey, you know what, we're just going to create our own channel. We'll sell direct to consumer and we'll just cut out the broadcasters completely.
Exactly.
I just wonder, in Canada, we wouldn't have enough people to fund that. I mean, that's the challenge with over the top in Canada, is that we just don't have enough people in this country. If you're only delivering to people in the country, but in the U.S., if you're looking at 350 million or whatever, or if you take an NFL or a league like that, they could broadcast around the world. So I just wonder how long it'll take to get there.
Well, I think it'll take as long as it takes the advertisers to decide whether or not they buy the next program, because that's their model, right? Is you buy programming if you're a broadcaster to you rent programming, and if you have enough advertisers to pay for that programming, great. And if your audience doesn't bring the advertisers to pay for the program, you're on a different thing. So you got to fix that trajectory, and you got to do it with a different technology. So I think OTT is a huge key part of that.
And in the past, advertising was paid for on the number of thousand viewers. So CPM, how much you spend per 100 or 1,000 viewers, was the price model. Going forward, now we have targeted advertising, and that CPM is much more expensive because you hopefully can target a much more sophisticated buyer who's interested in what you want. But eventually, they'll probably get to the point where you actually know that somebody clicked through and buys something, so you actually be paying for the actual successful purchase, and then programmers and content distributors will really have to deliver the consumer in a way that creates that revenue stream for advertising.
Well, and that's where it gets really scary because you're watching TV and you see something in a show you like, and up pops a little bubble that says, hey, you want to buy this? And you click on the bubble, and the broker, which is the one that peels off the advertising money, sends you to whatever vendor site in a browser window. It's terrifyingly cool. It's also terrifyingly personal.
Well, there's also where they actually know who the viewer is, and they put objects in the scene to promote. So
That's right.
there'll be a Coke bottle on the table for you when you're watching, and be a Pepsi bottle on the table when I watch it.
So you took because product placement,
real-time product placement into programming. I mean, so there's all of this interesting shifts. Some that'll look silly in the future, and some are like, wow, that was just the beginning of something really interesting, a transformation. you never quite know. Remember, it wasn't that long ago, we all thought we were all going to go to 3D TV too. So,
No, we didn't. Did you really? How many sets have you got?
I actually have a projector that came with glasses, 3D
Nice.
glasses. I never plugged in the emitter. I never took the glasses out of the box. That was not why I bought it. But,
Oh my goodness.
but they came with it.
We won't talk about it.
We better not. That's right.
I think
Well, as a man, no, yeah, go ahead. We'll forget 3D and leave that behind. Like
Yeah.
big industry.
because I was gonna say like some of those technologies are just cool, but like I remember going to the after IBC and after NAB when people saw like, the 3D, and I think it was you, Paul, or somebody said like this thing is gonna die because it was just a cool thing. Like the idea of drones, they're there, they serve their purpose, but just don't get too excited about it. Like it's just another tool.
Yeah, it's funny how you go to NAB a few years back and there were drone booths everywhere. It's like, really? This is going to take over the world?
It's like the hologram for VSRT on the elections on CNN. It was cool, but it's a one-trick pony. You did it, you do it again, it becomes a hologram. So I think the technology that you actually don't see as a user, that's the one to stay. So then you have your ad insertion, your programmatic. When you have the auction for the commercial and the insertion, and I think that's where we'll be. And if the user doesn't realize it's being served as specifically for you, I think that's where it's going to be the trend.
And so we've been talking mostly about ad insertion and how that shifts and revenue. But I will say, at least personally, I have been watching so much OTT for so long that it's almost impossible for me to go back and watch a scripted TV show with ads in it.
Mhm.
Especially with 18 minutes ads like these days and stuff, if I can't delay the record on my DVR and jump through the ads, I can't imagine sitting there and watching 5-minute ad blocks.
Yeah,
No way.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, and so with the
You never
exception
watch
of live
Mexican
sports
television? They
and
do
news,
like 2 minutes.
Yeah, well,
actually, I heard that the American nets were going to start doing that, to move to just national spots and limit their commercial breaks. Did that ever happen?
someone's
I don't
going to
know
take
how
the
they pay
money
the
away
bills.
from them. I don't know who that will be.
Yeah.
Well, I think they were just going to take the money away from the local and regional stations, but still stick with the really high performing national ads where they were making most of their money,
while
and reduce the commercial breaks while trying to retain viewers that are cutting away. Right?
while at the same time, those same stations are losing the retrans fees from all the cable and satellite companies because everybody's cutting the cord.
Right.
That's a good recipe. I mean, I hear the pain, but good luck being the network telling your affiliates that you're going to cut their ad insertion time in half. So I think we're in a major inflection, and honestly, I think broadcast over-the-air television driven by ads, even with ATSC 3.0, is going to have to work really hard to figure out where they fit into the next model.
How about fast models? Have you heard those?
So it's free to air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free to air, but with ads.
You're right. How's that different than broadcast television?
Isn't that TV?
It is, but delivered over the internet.
Right. Yes. So Peacock and HBO Max are doing that. Actually, not quite free. Actually, Peacock is free. HBO Max goes from $15 to $10 a month in the US if you do the ad version. CBS or Paramount Plus. So a lot of these platforms are offering an ad model and an ad-free model.
So you have commercials in between the blocks? Like a
I don't know, because I haven't subscribed to one of those, because why will I? For someone who doesn't want to watch ads all the time.
Because this is the thing. So how for example, companies how can they put the product in front of the viewers? Like they don't have their 20 seconds or 5 seconds. Like you will have it at your Facebooks and your YouTubes. You have to see the pre-roll and the post-roll, but
I think they will do ads in the middle. I think that's exactly what they'll do. And these are the same organizations that are really instrumental in developing the SCUDdy 35 triggers and 224 and all the rest of the technologies used to do ad insertion. So I believe that they've already spliced their programming and marked it up in a way that they can put ads in, and they can also have a viewer who will or a sponsor will just pay for the one in front and the one in the tail, you know, to say this entire episode is brought to you by Facebook or something, you know,
So,
if
you
they
know,
want to do that.
you're describing today's YouTube, because you can
Yeah.
buy content on YouTube, or you can buy it at a lesser price with ads.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
it's just packaged that way. Now, whether or not I haven't played with it, so I don't know if the ads are targeted, but I'm actually gonna give it a try to see if in fact the ads smell like me. And I suspect they probably might.
Mhm.
So the difference would be that in the current plan is the broadcast companies, you know, are the ones who actually sell the space, whereas now is going to be the companies who have their content in the OTT. It's just who the advertising companies will pay to put their commercials.
Well, and that's actually one of the problems. I talked to one of the major station groups in the US about a couple of years ago, was that the ad sales model for their OTT platform and web delivery was entirely different from their broadcast platform. Who they were selling to, how they were selling it, how they were buying the ads or putting the ads in, you know, and so they end up having two totally unreconcilable ad insertion delivery systems. You know, one that went through traffic, one that didn't. One was a freewheel where, you know, Google picked what ad got put in or something. And at some point you got to bring all those together, right? There has to be a, you know, reconciliation here that unifies that, because you can't have all these disparate platforms. And ATSC 3.0 in the US is viewed as something that might lead in that direction, where I can cache ads at the consumer's device that get inserted, so I can use the same ad insertion model for broadcast that I use for OTT. Whether they'll be able to implement that and figure out how to make it work across different broadcasts so you don't flip channels to avoid ads or something, I don't know.
Where that gets complicated, I think, in the broadcast industry is the broadcast industry's need for standards. And I think we'd be very, very far away from a standard to do that sort of thing. Whereas in, you know, you're in the Disney universe and playing with Disney, and they can push stuff that you execute, and, you know,
But it's amazing.
control what they can do.
It's amazing how much faster a standard happens when there's money on the line.
Yes, yeah. If there's money
Yeah,
to be lost, there's going to be a little bit more speed.
Well, okay, I mean, I agree with what you say, but okay, ATSC 3, we're in year 9 since it was proposed, and if money was on the line, I'd suggest it might have gone faster.
I would agree with you that it's been too much engineers doing ATSC 3.0 and not the business and programming side of the industry behind its development, which means that they're not on board with making all that work.
Yeah.
Yet.
So we'll see. But yeah, but you know, technology moves quick, so we'll see. I think
Yes.
We have an exciting future ahead. Roy, maybe I want to just point out to you the time and the fact that the social hour is beginning around now. So
Yes, in my official duty, I have to inform everyone that it is time to wrap. So yeah, the social event's starting, and I have a responsibility in the social hour, so I have to get over there too.
This seemed pretty social to me.
yeah, it was great.
It should have been
Definitely is.
quiet.
I was enjoying it.
This
I mean,
was
you know.
excellent. This was excellent. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
nice
very
to meet
interesting,
both of you,
guys.
Bill, Nacho, and
Yeah.
have this conversation. I you know,
Yes.
it's going to be an interesting ride wherever we
Yes.
go.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, the time
It's
is
always
times are
been.
changing. Yes,
Yeah.
it has.
Yeah.
It's really
But
happening
even
fast.
more. So yeah.
Well,
Never
nice to
like
meet
now,
you.
though. Likewise, guys.
Bill,
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Peter, Paul,
See you at
and
social hour.
bye, Roy.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, all
Bye,
guys.
Nacho.
Take care,
Bye,
guys.
Bill. Yep.
Cheers.